Hello friends, hi, hello, welcome. My name is August. This is Cozy Rosy Reads. I have another freaking massive book haul today. This is what I've accumulated in the past month. My last book haul video, was live like a month ago. So I have a little bit of a problem, but most of these are thrifted. If you saw my big thrift with me video, I got 14 books in that video, but a few days ago it was my birthday. It was my birthday on Friday and it was really lovely. I'm so excited to share an upcoming vlog with you all, so definitely stay tuned for that in the next few days. But I received some wonderful birthday gifts from that as well, some birthday books, and I just really wanted to kind of share all of the wonderful things that I've found in the past month, because thrifting and being gifted wonderful books for my birthday and just feeling so incredibly lucky to be surrounded by such amazing literature, it just continues to blow my mind. It continues to make me like so freaking happy, and I just really want to share that excitement with you all, because these are books that a lot of them I had never heard of, and then when I found them it was like, I need to tell the world, these are incredible, these are amazing books, incredibly underrated, let's talk about them. I hope wherever you are you're doing really well. Thank you so incredibly much for being here. I so appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I appreciate this coffee today. It feels so nice. Okay, are we ready to dig in? Here we go. Let's just start. I have organized these in alphabetical order. I like doing that so much because then it's just like such a weird eclectic mix of like what the books are and where I found them. Like they're just kind of like scattered. So they are in alphabetical order from A to U. I think U might be the last one we have. But yeah, let's get started. The first book, we're starting out really strong with like such an interesting book. I was so happy I found it at Goodwill, and that is Aimée and Jaguar by Erica Fischer, and it is translated from German by Edna McCone. This is a biography of two women whose nicknames are Aimée and Jaguar. Aimée was the wife of a Nazi. Jaguar was a Jewish woman who was in hiding in underground Berlin. They met, they fell in love, and became lovers, but then also they're on the run because she is the wife of a Nazi and she is a Jew. How incredible, how amazing, what? Why have I never heard of this story? Why have not a lot of us heard of this story? I think it's absolutely incredible. And then, just look at this beautiful cover here. It's a self-portrait of them. They took so many self-portraits. They share a lot of images in here of their self-portraits being intimate and being together and their interesting relationship. I am so excited to read this. I started reading it earlier this month, but it opens in October, and I was like, ooh, this would be a great fall read. So I'm putting this away for now, but holy moly, this is so exciting to read this, and it's a biography and includes their letters back and forth. Incredible. So a wonderful true sapphic story set during World War II. Incredible. Next is a book that I actually found on my birthday after a nice lovely brunch. My partner took me thrifting and I found this book there, and that is The Almost Moon by Alice Sebold. I don't know what it is specifically about this cover. I think I like the minimalist of it, that it's orange and then there's just like this floating chair right at the top. This seems like it is a character study, a very character development driven story about a older woman who kills her mom, and her mom has dementia, or had dementia, and she kills her. But it seems like there's just a lot of, grappling with the decision to do that. Like, are you actually helping them? Are you harming them? I don't know. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from the book. I just think it sounds like a really interesting kind of a thriller ride, but more of like a psychological thriller of like, how do you deal with grief? How do you deal with loss and coping and all that stuff? So I think it was a really cool find. I had never heard of this book, and yeah, seems interesting, so that's why I picked it up. This next one I also found at Goodwill a while ago, and that is The Assignation by Joyce Carol Oates. I'm so excited! This is a collection of short stories, and while I actually have never read a book that was straight up by Joyce Carol Oates, I have I have not written a Joyce Carol Oates book. Excuse me, who do I think I am? I have read a Joyce Carol Oates book, but she was under a pseudonym at the time. I really liked that book. It was really interesting. Anyway, this is a collection of short stories. I love this cover. Yet again, just another beautiful, stunning cover. I love that it's this painting. I love the short story collection. Some of the short stories in here are only 1 to 2 pages long. Like, they are very, very short. Like, there's another one, and here's another one. I am so excited for this one. I don't know why, but I've been kind of saving it for like summer. I don't know why it feels kind of like a beach read, but it's all over the place. So a woman's lover seems not to recognize her on the street. A teenage girl accepts a ride from a stranger in a rust-speckled Cadillac. An old man is obsessed by the memory of his innocent childhood. There's, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice. There's 44 short, powerful stories in this collection. 44 in this tiny thing. That is incredible. I am really, really excited to read this one. And again, I just love this version, this copy, this cover. I love how well loved it is, the colors, everything about it. It's just so aesthetic, and it's what I dream of being one day. I just want to look like this cover. You know what I'm saying? Up next is another book that I found on my birthday thrifting adventure, and that is Beloved by Toni Morrison. I'm so excited to read this one because I actually don't know. Well, actually, let's just pair it with the next one because I found another Toni Morrison book, The Bluest Eye. So now I have Beloved and The Bluest Eye. I chatted about this briefly in my Thrift With Me video, but basically I have only ever read one Toni Morrison book, and it was Tar Baby. Freaking loved it. It was incredible. The writing style is impeccable. The story was like so vague, and I really liked it. So I'm so excited to get into not one, but 2 famous Toni Morrison pieces. And to be honest, I don't know what either of them are about. I don't. They're just books that you hear all the time. Their titles are just so ubiquitous and just everywhere, but I actually don't know the plots, and I want to keep it that way. I want to keep not knowing what they're about so I can go in completely blind, as I did kind of with Tar Baby, and just be taken on a ride from there. Like, yes, please do that for me. So I'm really excited to have 2 more books by Toni Morrison. The next book that I found, this lovely, lovely one, is another one that I found during my Thrift With Me video exploration. This was such a great find because it's huge. It's an old high school library book edition, and that is The Collected Poems of Sylvia Plath. Ooh, I'm so excited. I honestly had no idea she wrote this much poetry, and this only spans from 1956 to 1963. So not even 10 years. I'm so excited to read her poetry. I mean, just like glancing at it, I'm like, this is my jam. Like, I really, really love her writing style, and I'm so excited to just dig into more of her work because I've only ever read The Bell Jar, and I know there's so much more to Sylvia Plath than that. So I'm really excited to dig into her poetry, read a ton of her poems and her writings and collections. So this was a really great find. Up next, this is the first book that I'm going to chat about that I was gifted for my birthday, and I was very appropriately given this book by my lovely little sister, and I'm so grateful for her. And that is The First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. First off, this cover, I don't know if you can tell, like, it is embossed. Is that the right word I'm looking for? It's like raised texture, and it has this beautiful gold cover as well. Look at it shimmering in the light. This is a book that my sister told me about, otherwise I would never have heard of it. Basically, it's almost kind of like, the vibes it's giving off is like a science fiction Handmaid's Tale or a Margaret Atwood kind of like dystopian sci-fi kind of vibe, and I'm like, yes, that sounds really intriguing. Honestly, I read the back and it's still going completely over my head because I'm like, hooty whatty what now? I don't quite understand the full thing, but I just feel like it's a book that once you dive into it, because it's not too long, it will make a lot more sense than just reading the back. I feel like it might just pack a really even bigger punch with the characters and the world building. But the ending of this back description does say, a stunning and sweeping debut novel that explores the power of technology, colonization, race, and gender. That sounds so rad to me. So thank you so much to my dear sister. I love you. This is such a cool, I am so happy that she gifted this to me. I'm not much of a science fiction reader, but when I am, I feel like like it's books like this where it really challenges social norms or has a bigger kind of like moral or topic or something, especially with that aesthetic. The next book that I found was another one during my Thrift With Me video. Like I said, mass majority of these are going to be from that video, so if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend you do. Or maybe not, because now you'll know what I thrifted. The next one is Diary of a Pigeon Watcher by Doris Schwerin. This is a really interesting, I'm really excited to get to this one, memoir, humor, essay, life thing. Basically it follows Doris as she lives in an apartment in New York City. This was written, I believe, in the 70s or the 80s. Just writes in her diary about these pigeons that are like on her windowsill ledge that she sees every day, and sees them grow their own family, and sees them fight off predators, and sees them just like have this life, just pigeons. And I just find that really moving. It says the book talks a lot about life and death and mortality and all the things that I love reading about. And I love memoirs, especially ones that seem so quirky and moving as this one. There's something about tying our own personal relationships or juxtaposing them against those of animals. I don't know why, that's just a really, like, it's just a thing that I really enjoy in writing, so I'm really excited to read this one. The next book here is another one that I found on that Thrift With Me video. I found it in a little free library, and that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. This is a, I still don't quite know what the heck this book is. Like, is it YA? Is it romance? I'm not quite sure. But seems like it follows our main character, who is a gentleman. He is in what year? Based on the cover, I am going to guesstimate that it is, 1800s maybe. But he's a gentleman. He is at a all-boys boarding school, and he is just like spending too much money and hooking up with a lot of different people, and has, he's just a little bit of like a party boy, but he's expected to be so much more. He's supposed to be royal, supposed to be fancy-dancy. That's all I really know. I don't even know if that's accurate. This just seems like a fun book. I just kind of want to go into it when I want some lighter read. Maybe this is light. What if it just turns out to be like, I'm just bawling my eyes out at it? That will teach me. This next book I'm already reading. I'm very close to finishing. Woo! And it was gifted to me by my partner for my birthday, and I'm so incredibly thankful and grateful. I was so excited when I got it. Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I am so excited that I have a copy of this now, and I am actually quite far into it. I would say I maybe have like 100 something pages left. I'm so geeked about this one. I'm loving it. I love that I grew up with the movie and know the movie so well, and then to be reading this book. It is just a wonderful ride. This book kind of reminds me a little bit of like the writing style of like the first Harry Potter. Like, it's so magical, really easy to read. There's some things that are a little confusing because of the magical world that you're like, wait, what? You can just do that? But I just really enjoy it. I think it's just so much fun. I'm so happy I'm finally reading it. This is a great one for, yeah, like middle grade YA, but then also for older people like myself. So I'm really enjoying that. But then he also gifted me with it the sequel to Howl's Moving Castle, which I didn't even know there was one, and this is House of Many Ways. So these copies go together. They go together so well. They're beautiful. And yeah, I'm really excited to then read the sequel because I know nothing about it. I don't know in what world this is going to take place. I didn't even know there was a sequel. The next book I actually found over at Dollar Tree for $1, brand new, and that is The Invention of Anna by Mikkel Rosengaard. This book, I do believe, is translated from Danish. Yes, it's translated by Caroline Waite. So this is a really interesting book. The reason I picked it up was because I had just finished reading Our Tragic Universe by Scarlett Thomas, which I loved. It was my favorite book that I read in the month of March. But this is just a book where it's similar, where it dives into character development, just a lot about characters. Also deals a lot with, this one specifically is like math, physics, and time. And I really love books like that. I can't read them back to back to back in a row, so that's why I'm taking a little breather and haven't dived into this. But books that typically deal with really like intellectual stuff that's like smarter than me, I don't know why, but like I just really like it, and I like physics and how it interweaves with relationships and characters in books. It's like an oddly specific, I don't know if it's really even a trope, but I just really like that. So this book definitely takes that. Basically we're following this young man who meets a woman. Things happen. I believe her father is like a really famous mathematician. Okay, the invention of Anna blurs the lines between narrative and memory, perception and reality, identity and authenticity. I don't know, I really enjoy the cover as well. It's a good find. So that is the invention of Anna. Anna? Anna. I know my books. The next book I actually found over on Goodreads. I ordered it on thriftbooks.com. It was my first time ever using thrift books, and that is Jam on the Vine by LaShonda Catrice Barnett. This is an old public library book, so that's what Thrift Books sent me, was an old discarded library book, which I really love. This is an incredible story. I am so geeked to get to it. So it is following a young woman named Evo who is growing up. It's the early 1900s. Her mother is Muslim. Our main character is in love with writing and journalism and wants to pursue journalism, but at the time it's going through the Jim Crow South. It is also a sapphic love story because her and her lover then create the first African-American female-run newspaper called Jam on the Vine, and it just, there's just so many elements in here that seem like perfection. It also has beautiful deckled edges, and I'm just really excited. This is a book that I have not seen anyone else talk about, and it's one that just seems so intriguing. It has really wonderful reviews, and I'm just really excited to get into it. Also, let's see if we can focus a little bit on that beautiful cover. I love these illustrations so much. So stunning. The next book that I also got from Thrift Books was The Job of the Wasp by Colin Winnett. Now, I have already read this book. I actually read it on my Kindle from Libby as an ebook, and I wasn't even finished with the book, and I was like, I know I want a copy of this. I want a physical copy of this book because what the hell was this book? It is so eerie, so creepy, so messed up. This cover itself is like supposed to represent kind of like skin, and then you open up this dust flap jacket here and you've got these disgusting boils. To me it felt like a mixture of like Lord of the Flies, Sixth Sense, and like Wilder Girls. Really good. I loved it. I thought it was super messed up, and I definitely want more people to read it. I want to recommend it to more people, especially if you like really creepy, gross things that it's really convoluted. There's really no like answer. Like it's just weird things happen, and I don't know, I just really liked it. So I was able to find this on Thrift Books for like $2.99. So it was a really good find, and yeah, I'm excited to talk more about this one in my April wrap-up, but I'm really happy I have a copy now because it was weird and I really liked it. The next book that I found, it was at Goodwill, is Kabuki Dancer, a novel of the woman who founded Kabuki by Sawako Ariyoshi, and this was translated from Japanese by James R. Brandon. It is a novelization, so it's like historical fiction of the woman who founded Kabuki. So it takes place in 16th century Japan, and it follows the woman who created it. It also talks about her relationships and like her life, which is just so interesting because I know little to nothing about Kabuki, let alone the woman who founded it. So I think it'll be really interesting to read. So there is that book. This is another book that I found in a little free library, and that is Meet Me in Atlantis, My Obsessive Quest to Find the Sunken City by Mark Adams. This is a nonfiction book that follows Mark's physical quest, physical journeys as he travels and flies and vacations and researches where Atlantis like geographically, physically could have been. From my understanding, that is what it seems like, because each chapter seems like it bounces to a different city and a different time that he's really trying to find Atlantis, which is a topic that I'm just really interested about. I know little to nothing again about Atlantis. I'm just really curious about this one. I think it sounds like really interesting. So there is that book. Next is yet again another little free library find. That is Michelangelo and the Pope's Ceiling by Ross King. This is quite a chunky book for a paperback. I mean, it's like way bigger than my head. It talks about Michelangelo's 4 extraordinary years laboring over the vast ceiling, power politics, personal rivalries abound in Rome, battling against ill health, financial difficulties, domestic problems, the Pope's impatience, and a bitter rivalry with the brilliant young painter Raphael. I really just want to retain more knowledge about classic quote-unquote painters and really understand who they really were, because a lot of them were extremely problematic and we still see them as like the great masters. I just would like to know a little bit more, I think. So I'm excited to read this eventually. It's not like a book that I'm going to get to anytime soon, I don't think, but I'm very curious and very interested in having a copy of this. We are finishing the first stack. This is the last book on this stack and I'm so excited. This is a really interesting nonfiction memoir that I found at Goodwill yet again. I've been finding wonderful things at thrift stores lately, and that is My Sister Marilyn, a memoir of Marilyn Monroe. First off, I didn't even know Marilyn Monroe had a sister. I just want to take a second to appreciate the actual format of this. It's like a square shape. I have this nice photograph in the back as well. I don't know, I just feel like I would love if more books were like this square shape. There's just something really pleasing about it to me. But I'm really excited because I've never been one who's like been obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. I know she's an icon. I never really thought about like who she is as a person. I never really kind of went through a Marilyn Monroe phase. So I'm really curious to do kind of like this deep personal dive, this memoir from her sister's perspective about what it was like growing up with her and growing up in their family. So I just feel like it's a really interesting memoir, an autobiography to have. So I'm really looking forward to reading it. The first of our next stack is one that I properly geeked out about in my Thrift With Me video, and that is Norwegian folk tales. Oh my gosh. These are stories that were orally collected by these 2 fairy tale writers. I just love this cover and I love this little shape hardcover. Next up, this book is actually really exciting to me because I did find it on my birthday while thrifting, but it's a book that I've already read. And it's a book that I listened to maybe at the beginning of 2020 before the pandemic actually hit. And this is such an incredible book. I loved listening to it. That is An Ocean of Minutes by Taya Lim. This is a science fiction like love story. So it's like such a cool concept. It takes place in the 1980s, but in a parallel universe maybe. And in the 1980s there is a pandemic that breaks out, and people who are not able to afford, you know, healthcare or the cure are then sent to the future to work as laborers. From there the government will then be like, okay, you made the sacrifice, we'll pay for your family member, your loved one's treatment. So it follows a couple. The man in the relationship gets sick, the woman then goes on to the future. She gets sent too far into the future. It was heartbreaking, it was beautiful, it was freaking weird, and I just really liked it. And this cover, again, is very beautiful. So if you like science fiction and you like love stories, not romances, but just like a love story, I do recommend this one. I thought it was really bizarre, really interesting. I was really happy that I found a copy of this because I really haven't seen anyone else talk about it and I haven't seen it anywhere for sale. So An Ocean of Minutes. Next is another book that I've actually already read. That is so funny that that just happened in a row, but that is Perfume by Patrick Suskind. I talked about this one at length in my Thrift With Me video, but basically I read it in December of last year before I started and was on BookTube. I was so disappointed because I was looking forward to reading it for years. I was really, really amped to read it. I thought it would be the perfect book for me, and then when I read it I was so disappointed. I think it's just because it was really built up in my mind. I really didn't understand why the story went where it went, and if you finish this book, I mean, what Can we talk about the ending? What was that? I wish I just enjoyed it on my first go around, but I was just really critical and really upset. And I still don't quite understand why people like this book so much. Like, people say it's their favorite book of all time, and I'm like, why? If it's yours, let me know. Not to diss you. Like, I've only heard wonderful things, so I'm like, maybe there's something wrong with me. I didn't get it. I am excited to read this again in several years. Not anytime soon again, but give it another go. I want to be open-minded. Next is another book found from that thrifting. I think actually the next few are from there, but we have A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry. This is actually a play, a cute, tiny little play. I had never heard of it. Several people have commented and said that, you know, it was made into a film. It's a really famous play, and I'm like, I still have never heard of it though. So I'm really excited to get into it. This was first produced in 1959. It is a pioneering work by an African-American playwright. That is A Raisin in the Sun. Next we have Red Scarf Girl, a memoir of the Cultural Revolution by Ji-Li Jiang. This is another book that I found at Goodwill. I don't actually know anything about this or the time it was written, but basically it seems like she wrote this as a reflection of her childhood, like she's an older woman and then writing about what happened to her as a child. I'm sure really awful things happen in this. I'm sure she talks a lot more about what's happening in the world. I wonder if it's more of like a reflection, or maybe she had a diary at that time. And really on the back there isn't a whole lot discussing it, but apparently this is like required reading in some schools again, but I've never heard of it. Next is a book that I found at a smaller thrift consignment shop. I'm so geeked for this book, and that is Reindeer Moon by Elizabeth Marshall Thomas. This book follows our main character Yanan, who is a girl who lived 20,000 years ago in a tribe in Siberia. And this book just follows the dynamic character relationships, life and death of living in like a prehistoric tribe in Siberia. I'm so geeked for this. I have never read a book from this kind of perspective before, but it seems super up my alley. It does talk about in the dust jacket that there is mention of like ancient magic, so there might be some magical realism in here as well, but I think overall it is more of a historical fiction rather than a fantasy, but who knows? I'm just really excited to get into it. The next book is a book that I found at Dollar Tree yet again for $1, and I read it this month, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but this was just such a good find. This is The Sculptor, which is a graphic novel by Scott McCloud. Oh, it was just very poetic. Talks a lot about being an artist, not having enough time to be able to make something of yourself when you're constantly making art. It was just really beautiful. It's a really big graphic novel, but reads really quickly. This was a great find. I'm really happy I found it at Dollar Tree. So there's that one. It's so funny that I found this because I have mentioned this several times now, but I rewatch Sex and the City every single spring. Every year. I think this is my 5th or 6th time watching the whole series. This year I finally said out loud, I was like, I need to read the book that this is based on. I can't believe I still haven't read it. And then lo and behold, there was a copy of Sex and the City by Candace Bushnell in this little free library. So how serendipitous was that? I'm so happy. I'm so excited to read this. This is obviously the TV show version cover, but I'm so excited to read the piece that originally inspired my favorite show of all time. Next is a little tiny book that I thrifted at Goodwill, and that is Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. I'm not even sure what this book is about. I've just seen it around for a long time, I feel like, and never really thought to pick it up, never really thought to give it a chance, didn't really know it was this kind of short, tiny little thing, but I decided to pick it up and I could get some more historical context. That's it. I'm excited to read it though. I like this blue cover a lot. My copy is definitely well loved. It's really scratched up, but I think that's why I really like it. So that's Siddhartha. Next is another book that I found at Dollar Tree, brand new. That is The Skill of Our Hands by Stephen Brust and Skylar White. Unfortunately, this is a second in, I don't know if this is a series or a duology or trilogy, I don't know. But it is the second book, so I'm going to have to find a copy of, unfortunately there's no ebook or audiobook version of the first book, which is called The Incrementalist. But this sounds like a science fiction that, yet again, is so up my alley. I really, really want to read it, so I need to order myself a copy of the first book. But basically, it is the Incrementalists are a secret society of 200 people, an unbroken lineage reaching back 40,000 years. They cheat death, share lives and memories, and communicate with one another across nations and time. They have an epic history, an almost magical memory, and a very modest mission to make the world better a little bit at a time. So it seems like they have parallel lives with real people, but they're a secret society. Also seems like there's a lot to deal with, like past life regressions. I don't know. And it takes place in the desert. Yes, like this is just everything to me. I really love this cover. So I really am super excited. I should just order the first book already and just get it here soon so I can read it. I'm really excited. I don't know, it just seems like a sci-fi that I could really get into. It just sounds really rad. So hopefully it doesn't disappoint me. Next book that I have is a book that I found in a little free library, and that is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Brontë. This is a gorgeous cover. Hello, lady. That is just beautiful. Very well loved. These pages are like Bible thin, you know what I'm saying? Like they're just really, really thin, really tiny. This is a book that I've actually never heard of. I've obviously heard of Anne Brontë. It follows this young woman named Helen who has decided to leave her husband and earn her own living. The realism and range of its dialogue and its psychological insight into the characters involved in the marital battle. So that just sounds like really interesting to me, that it's a Victorian piece, but it follows a woman who wants her own freedom. She wants her own liberty. She's like basically getting a divorce and is trying to earn a livable wage on her own. So I don't know, I just feel like this is one that I could definitely get into and be more keen to read. So that is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Next, if you have seen my last reading vlog, I'm sorry, I'm gonna do it all over again, but basically, the next book is The Truth About Awiti by C.P. Patrick. Oh my freaking god! Oh my god, this book is incredible. 5 trillion gold stars over and over and over again. I've already read it, but I needed to include it in this because I did thrift it in my Thrift With Me video. Impeccable, perfect, wonderful, important, educational. This follows a young woman named Awiti in 15th century Africa as she is then separated from her family, and it follows her as that she is then made immortal, and she goes and makes it her quest, her journey, her life's purpose, her immortal life's purpose, to free as many slaves as she can, to cause and get revenge on white slave masters and their families and the descendants of white slave masters. She then, her spirit kind of creates the storms and the hurricanes that travel from West Africa across the transatlantic, which follows almost exactly the transatlantic slave trade route, and then hits the US South, which is where a lot of slaves ended up in the Confederate States. Absolutely amazing. Each chapter in here is from a different person's perspective throughout years from different locations, and it talks about the many and very different ways that slavery and discrimination have impacted the entire world, the globe, people. Oh my god, it's just so incredible, but it talks about how they are then introduced to Awiti. Just absolutely amazing. I geeked out so much in my last reading vlog about it. I will continue to geek out about this book. I just think it deserves so many more readers. I'm so happy I found this, and I found it for 50 cents. So, the power of thrifting, my friends. Next is a book that I found while thrifting on my birthday. I don't know what it is about 2021 specifically, but I've just been wanting to read a lot of like classic children's literature that I've never read from before. So when I saw this book, I was like, yes, I will take one, please. That is Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. I have actually read a book from Natalie Babbitt. I have it on my shelves, and it was one of my favorite books growing up as a kid, and it's called The Search for Delicious. Has anyone else read it? I feel like this is her book that is much more popular. More people know it, but I don't. It's very familiar, but I actually have no idea really what the story is or why it's so famous or popular. So I'm just really excited to read it. It's very short. It is like what, middle grade? YA? I'm not even sure. I'm just really excited to read it and then form my own opinions on this classic piece. This next book just feels like such an incredibly lucky find. I found it in a little free library in my Thrift With Me video. It is a large print version of Untamed by Glennon Doyle. This is a memoir. I don't know if it's like a self-help mixed with memoir. I actually don't really know much about it. But I'm just really excited to read it. I've seen this book everywhere. It's a gorgeous, stunning cover. I actually don't know much about it, but I am excited to read it and learn more. I found this book over at Goodwill, and it is The Voyages of Dr. Doolittle by Hugh Lofting. I'm just so excited to see the original story of Dr. Doolittle. I know nothing about it. All I know is like the Eddie Murphy movie versions. I'm just really excited to read it. Another piece of classic children's literature that I actually know nothing about, but I'm super excited to get into it. It's like middle grade, YA. It's a veterinarian who can actually talk to animals, and he sets sail on the high seas for new adventure. This novel won the Newbery Medal in 1922, so I'm really excited to read this one. The last book that we have here is one that I'm so excited to read. This is a classic. This is one that's been on my radar forever, but I wasn't required to read it in high school, and I kind of wish I did, but alas, I found a copy at Goodwill. Watership Down by Richard Adams. This is a book that follows a group and a clan of rabbits, hares, bunnies. I don't know which one they are, but they are able to talk to each other, and there's like war, and there's like famine, and there's really deep human issues, but through rabbits. I'm just really excited. This is a classic. I'm so geeked out to read it sometime soon. I would love to read it in 2021. This was just a great find, so I'm really excited. There is a really cool map in the front as well, some maps that go over the land that these rabbits explore and inhabit. I'm just really excited for this one. Oh my gosh, friends, there it is. There was so many books, so many wonderful books that I found and thrifted and have been gifted, and I'm just so jazzed, so geeked about all of these. I'm so excited. I would love to hear if you've read any of them, what your thoughts were. I'm just so happy that these came into my life in such wonderful, unique ways. I'm beyond happy. So thank you so much for being here. I would love to hear what books you have found or picked up or brought home recently. Thank you all so much again for being here. I appreciate you so much. Stay cozy, my friends. Bye!